Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to my new tutorial. Now, I've had a few people asking me how I made my second speed intro, which is the metal shiny one. And yeah, so I'm gonna make this tutorial, and it's not gonna be exactly the same. This is a recreation, so there might be a few things slightly different, but I'll try and make it as similar as possible. And if you didn't see it, here it is here. Alright, so inside After Effects here, I'm using CS5, but it should be the same for CS3 and CS4. And create a new composition by composition, new composition, 1280 by 720, and we'll just call this metal intro. Square pixels, 29.97 frames per second, and we'll go 10 seconds. Alright, so once we got this loaded up, we need to import our textures. And I've got these two here, and the links to all the fonts and the textures and the project file is in the description if you want it. So we've got this dark metal texture here, which can be our background, so just drag it in, and there we go. Now this scratched metal texture here is inside the text, so we'll need to change that a bit. So drag it in, press R to bring up the rotation properties, and we'll rotate it 90 degrees so it's like that. And now we want to get our text tool, and the font I used was Bank Gothic, and also the links in the description. So we'll just type Infuse Media and center it. And if you don't know how to bring up your guidelines to center it and stuff, you can just go down here to the choose grid and guide options and make sure title action safe is on. Or you can press the inverted comma key on your keyboard. Alright, and we'll just make it bold and drag tracking in a bit. Alright, so there we go, we've got our text. Now we want to make it so the texture is inside the text. So put your texture below your text and go to the track matte options here. If you can't see that, you can press F4 to toggle them, or click the button down the bottom here and it'll cycle through. So go to the track matte on your scratched metal texture layer and set it to Luma Matte Infused Media and all your text. And you can see the texture is now pretty much inside the text. And we'll go ahead and pre-compose these two together, so highlight them both by holding Shift or Control and go Layer, Pre-Compose, and we'll just call this text, and then double click to enter your pre-composition here. And we want to make a few adjustments, so go to your effects and presets and we'll type in curves for starters and apply it to your scratched metal texture layer, and just increase the contrast a bit, make it a bit more detailed looking, kind of make the scratches stand out a bit. And you can adjust your texture here if you want. You can scale it down to get a bit more scratches in, or move it around a bit to get a good position, and that looks pretty good for me. And now we'll go back to here and we want to apply some adjustments to this. So we'll get a drop shadow effect and drag that onto our pre-composition and make it 180 distance and play around with the softness until you get the look you're going for, and that just makes it just gives it a nice like kind of 3D kind of look. I don't know, just add some detail. And we'll get a glow effect next and drag that on. And we want to play around the threshold here, so it's not all bright like that, and just so it has a nice black outline. Increase the radius a little bit. That's pretty good. Just keep it like that, and then we will get a bevel alpha adjustment here. And this will pretty much, if we change up the light intensity, you can see it makes the edge of this kind of shiny, makes it look like light's coming from that way, and just adds a pretty cool effect in my opinion. So just play around with the edge thickness and then the light angle, and you'll get a look you're going for. And if we put this above the drop shadow, so if we put the drop shadow at the bottom, it'll look a bit better again. Alright, so it's looking pretty good. Pretty happy with that at the moment. Just a sec. Alright. So once we've got all that, we're ready to start putting it all together. So we'll scale this up a little bit so it's a bit bigger. And I had the 2 letters IM really big in the background, so we'll just have that now. And the font is Roofer. It's just this cool kind of graffiti-ish looking font. We'll scale it right up and center it and rotate it a bit. Alright, so there we go. Drag that below your text layer and we'll set that to overlay. And that way it's just kind of like a watermark. Doesn't really distract you that much, it just adds as a cool background feature. And now we want to create the shine that was on the background, so we'll create a new adjustment layer and drag it just above your IM or your 2 letters in the background and your background here. You don't want it over your text layer, so we'll call this background shine, and pretty much get a curves adjustment and drag it onto your adjustment layer. Now what an adjustment layer does is it affects every layer below the adjustment layer. So if you put it at the top, every layer will be affected by it. So yeah, and we'll just increase the brightness here, and then get an ellipse tool. If it's not there, just click and hold on your rectangle tool and go down to the ellipse tool, and we'll create a circle kind of thing. Now if we get our pointer tool, selection tool, and you can press shift and control to bring up all your little tabs here so you can adjust it, and pretty much just adjust it until you get what you're looking for. Alright, that's good enough for me at the moment, and if it's too bright for you, you can just use the opacity to finally adjust it. You don't want it to stand out all that much, so that's pretty good for now. And now we want to create the shine on the text. So to do that, all we need to do is go back into our pre-composition and again create a new adjustment layer, and we'll call this text shine. And this is the reason why we pre-compose the text layer, because if we didn't, what we're about to do, it would affect the background as well, and we only want it to affect the text. So drag your curves adjustment onto this shine as well and do the exact same thing. But this time, instead of creating a circle, we want to grab the pen tool here and make a shape like this. And if you hold shift, it creates perfectly straight horizontal lines and whatnot. So there we go. Now we'll go forward to say 3 seconds on our timeline and bring up our mask path property by pressing M. Now click the stopwatch to make a keyframe and drag this out of the frame. Then we'll go forward to say 4 seconds, so it's a second animation, and drag it all the way across to the other side of the frame. And highlight both and right click, keyframe assistant, easy ease, or just press F9. Now if we watch that, you can see it goes across and it lights up the text in its path. And you can just adjust the brightness to suit however much you want. And now if we go back to our final composition here, you can see it pretty much runs across the text. Alright, so the final thing is to animate the text in. Now this is probably the easiest part of the whole tutorial. Go to your text pre-composition and press P to bring up position. Now since our shine happens at 3 seconds in, we want it to be fully animated in before then. So create the final keyframe at about 2.5 seconds or 2 3/4 or so. Click the stopwatch. Now we'll go back to about a second before, and we'll drag this up. Yep. And then we want to go forward a little bit and drag it all the way down past where your keyframe is, and drag it all the way up a bit past, and then maybe a bit below, and then it'll go back to its original position. So what this does is it just makes it like bounce in, And it might not look too good at the moment, but again, smooth out all these keyframes. And motion blur helps a lot, so if you don't know how to do motion blur, go back to this screen by toggling the switches and click this little circle with the motion blur behind it and click the box on the text layer. And now you want to turn it on for the composition as well by clicking this button here. So now you can see it's full of motion blur, and that'll kind of fly in and bounce up and down a bit. And that takes a bit of fine tuning to do to get it to look right. You might need to expand your keyframes or make them a bit faster by dragging them closer together. And yeah, just play around with it until you get the look you're going for. And that's pretty much all I did. So the text comes in, stops, and the shine goes across. So thanks for watching, and make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.